Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 8 Part 11 based on novel. So let's start. The four individuals faced off in front of the enormous stone altar. Faintly, a taunt and darkly chilling mood flowed all around. The eyes of those four individuals possessed killing intent that was difficult to conceal. Do you guys want to come and give it a try? Yuan Kang's eyes clearly turned a lot darker and sterner when he heard Lin Dong's words. His eyes stared at Lin Dong. The latter's face did not contain the slightest fear. Instead, there was a kind of madness surfacing on it. This madness caused Yuan Kang's pupils to shrink slightly. The current him had already withdrew his contempt for Lin Dong. After all, he did not like to fail in the most unexpected places. Although there was no need to fear the strength Lin Dong displayed on the surface, the various incidents earlier had allowed him to understand that one would be a genuine fool if one merely relied on Lin Dong's superficial strength to evaluate him. Although Yuan Kang did not understand why Lin Dong still dared to fight them head-on at this stage, he vaguely felt like Lin Dong was not attempting to do the impossible. Lin Dong definitely had something up his sleeve. The so-called hefty price that he had mentioned might not merely be empty words. Yuan Kang's eyes flickered. He was not an indecisive person. It was just that he was clearly aware that Lin Dong was not someone who would act tough. Boss. Lei Qian and Ling Zhen watched Yuan Kang as thoughts rapidly passed through his mind, only to end up being momentarily stunned. They did not expect that the latter would pause because of Lin Dong's words. Boss, no matter how capable this brat is, he cannot oppose the three of us. Don't be intimidated by him. Lei Qian spoke in a dark and gloomy manner. Ling Zhen's eyes flickered a little. He glanced at Lin Dong but did not say anything else. He was clearly aware of Yuan Kang's character. If the latter did have any concerns, there was no way that he would be intimidated by Lin Dong. Let me control the formation first. Yuan Kang's eyes slowly withdrew from Lin Dong as he spoke in a faint voice. Lei Qian was immediately outraged when he heard this. He was just about to speak when Yuan Kang looked at him coldly and spoke in low voice, "Why are you so anxious? Once we control the formation, will he still be able to escape?" Lei Qian, wait a little longer. What boss has said is the most foolproof method. You can be the one to decide how to deal with him later. Ling Zhen also opened his mouth to speak. All right. We'll allow him to jump about a little longer. Lei Qian clenched his teeth and nodded. After which, he looked at Lin Dong with a ferocious gaze. Yuan Kang's expression was indifferent as he stared at Lin Dong. Soon after, his body drifted backwards and landed on the enormous stone altar. He did not like to take risks. Although he did not really believe that Lin Dong had a way to oppose the three of them, he still did not wish to take that risk. Hence, he chose to temporarily suppress his murderous desire. Once he took control of the burning sky array, Lin Dong would definitely be unable to escape death even if he possessed some ultimate trump card. After Yuan Kang withdrew to the altar, Lei Qian and Ling Zhen hovered into the air while their eyes were tightly fixed onto Lin Dong. Yuan power surged on their bodies. Clearly, they did not wish for Lin Dong to interfere. You wish to control the burning sky array, huh? Lin Dong seemed to have guessed Yuan Kang's intention after seeing the latter's action. Strangely, however, there was no panic on his face. He appeared as though he was not aware of the predicament he would be in once Yuan Kang took control of the formation. Do you know the consequences if he takes control of the formation? Ling Qingzhu's eyes looked at the altar and asked in a faint voice. At that time, the lives of everyone who has entered this burning sky ancient stash will be in the palm of his hand. Even if you have some way of escaping, none of your Dao sect disciples will be able to escape. I know. Lin Dong smiled. Ling Qingzhu involuntarily bunched up her eyebrows when she saw his reaction. Then, why are you still so calm? Controlling the burning sky array will indeed mean taking control of the lives of everyone within this array. However, the key thing is the burning sky array so easily controlled? Lin Dong laughed softly. This place is the central hub of the burning sky array, and Yuan Gate must have definitely obtained some information. Are you so certain that he will not succeed? Do you plan to use all the lives of your Dao sect disciples as stakes in this gamble? Ling Qingzhu asked. This place is indeed the central hub of the burning sky array. An arc was lifted from the corners of Lin Dong's mouth. He immediately raised his head and looked at the bright red sky before muttering, "Let's wait and see." He won't succeed. Ling Qingzhu frowned gently. However, she did not continue probing further. She turned her head and turned to look at Yuan Kang on the altar. At this moment, the latter was continuously emitting vigorous Yuan power light pillars that were poured into the huge stone altar. Bang bang! A deep rumbling sound was suddenly emitted by the large altar following Yuan Kang's actions. Immediately, the enormous stone altar slowly began to tremble. Wave after wave of intense light continued to emerge from the altar. In the air, Lingzhen and Lei Qian looked at each other as joy surged within their eyes. From the looks of it, it seemed that the information that they had received was correct. One light pillar after another shot out from the top of the altar. These light pillars interweaved with each other, forming an enormous light array. Lin Dong's eyes narrowed slightly when he saw this strange light array. The light array descended and coincidentally wrapped around the altar. However, this scene caused the corners of Lin Dong's eyes to twitch. This was because the light array did not seem to be protecting the altar. Instead, it appeared as though it was suppressing the altar. Something is not right. Lin Dong stepped back a little and arrived beside Ling Qingzhu as he softly commented. A grave expression had also appeared in Ling Qingzhu's eyes at this moment. She seemed to have sensed something as well. Yuan Kang's brows frowned slightly as he stood on the altar and watched the light array which had covered the altar. Soon after, he hesitated for a while. After which, he suddenly slammed his palm onto an ancient stone pillar in the middle of the altar. Boom! The stone pillar exploded, and a light pillar immediately scattered. Soon after, the light array that enveloped the altar also suddenly turned much dimmer. Bang! The altar suddenly shook violently when the light array dimmed. Slight cracks appeared on the surrounding bright red land. What is going on? The Lingzhen duo in midair were shocked when they saw this scene. This was not supposed to happen after they took control of the formation. On the altar, Yuan Kang's expression changed a little. He immediately clenched his teeth and slammed a palm forward, shattering all the light pillars that had shot out from the stone pillar. Bang bang bang! One light pillar after another swiftly disappeared, while the altar also began to tremble with increasing intensity. In the end, a black aura emerged from the cracks. Lin Dong's eyes suddenly shrunk when he saw the black aura, as a shocked expression appeared on his face. This aura was not foreign to him. That was because it was practically the same as the unknown creature that was being suppressed by the Great Desolate Tablet. Those foreign creatures were also being suppressed by this altar. Lin Dong inhaled a breath of cool air. Although the aura here did not appear as frightening as the one suppressed under the Great Desolate Tablet, that level of terror was definitely not something that they could handle. What are they? Ling Qingzhu had also discovered the black aura. Her eyes hardened as she inquired. Things are gonna be a lot more troublesome. Lin Dong's eyes were grim. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Yuan Kang on the altar as he cried out in a stern voice, "You fool! Are you really taking control of the formation? Do you intend to release the beings that are being suppressed by this altar?" Lingzhen's and Lei Qian's expressions were somewhat grim and solemn when they saw the unusual black qi that rose from the ground. This did not seem to be something that should happen after taking control of the formation. It is not up to you to bother about such things. Yuan Kang's eyes turned dark and cold. Immediately, he looked at the last stone pillar in front of him. Hesitation flashed across his eyes before he finally clenched his teeth ferociously and ruthlessly shattered the last stone pillar. Crack! The light array that covered the altar immediately disappeared when the final light pillar vanished. At the same time, the trembling also came to a halt. The Yuan Kang trio sighed in relief when the altar stopped shaking. However, just as the sighs left their mouths, they suddenly detected an extremely wild and violent dark chilly fluctuation suddenly appear under the altar. Finally, it charged out in a maniacal manner. Bang! The large stone altar exploded at this moment and stone fragments shot out explosively. A monstrous black fog also swept out from the ground. Immediately, an indescribable evilness spread across the sky. These three bastards. Lindorm's expression was ugly as he gazed at the evil black fog that had broke out of the ground. He could not help but curse. These three bastards had actually released the thing that was being suppressed by the altar. A monstrous black fog swept out from the bottom of the altar and spread outwards. An unusually dark, cold and evil aura scattered around. What is it? Ling Qingzhu's eyes were grave as she watched the black fog spread. The dark cold evilness within it caused her expression to change involuntarily. That evilness was something that she had never encountered before. She was also aware that some special cultivation methods would cause such a fluctuation to appear. Compared to this, however, there was an inherent difference. This fluctuation appeared to be completely out of tune with this world. Moreover, it seemed to be attempting to completely remove any form of life in this world. The main culprit behind the ancient Great World War, from the looks of it, it was not completely destroyed back then, and this fellow was sealed here. Currently, it is trying to make use of this opportunity to escape. Lindorm's eyes were grim as he spoke. The main culprit behind the ancient Great World War. Ling Qingzhu knitted her brows and softly asked, "What should we do now?" Lindorm laughed bitterly. How would he know what to do? This creature was not something that they could deal with. What are they planning to do? Lindorm suddenly heard Ling Qingzhu's startled voice while he was laughing bitterly. He hurriedly lifted his head and saw the Yuan Kang trio approaching the monstrous black fog. As they approached, majestic Yuan power ferociously swept out from within their bodies. After which, it transformed into a triangular-shaped light curtain that enveloped the black fog. From the looks of it, they were thinking of capturing the black fog creature. Idiots! Lindorm's expression immediately changed drastically when he saw this scene. He directly grabbed Ling Qingzhu's wrist and suddenly withdrew explosively. While the Lindorm duo was withdrawing, the triangular light curtain in the sky had already slammed heavily onto the monstrous black fog. TSK, even ants like you actually dare to attack this general? You are indeed despicable creatures. The black fog surged as an unusually deafening strange evil laughter was immediately emitted. The black fog cleared and the three faces of the triangular light curtain, which contained powerful Yuan power, emitted a sizzling sound and disappeared the moment it touched the black fog. It had no effect at all. The Yuan Kang trio's expressions underwent some changes when they saw that their attack was completely useless against this strange creature. Soon after, their bodies hurriedly shot backwards. ****. While they shot backwards, a large hand made of black fog from the black fog creature immediately grabbed at the three of them. Bang bang! Majestic Yuan power hurriedly whistled out when the three of them saw this. However, their attacks were automatically eroded and annihilated the moment they touched the large black fog hand. It looked as if their attacks were completely ineffective against it. Lindorm, who had withdrawn to a distance, had a cold and indifferent expression as he watched the three miserable figures being attacked by the black fog creature. It was their own fault for getting into this mess. Release your hand. A cold yet soft voice was suddenly emitted from beside Lindorm. Only then did he discover that he was still tightly grabbing Ling Qingzhu's wrist. Immediately, he let out a soft cough and casually released his hand. This creature seems to be extremely difficult to deal with. Ling Qingzhu gently rubbed at the spot where Lindorm had forcefully grabbed earlier. Her voice was still cold. However, her eyes no longer looked at Lindorm when she spoke. There was a slight ripple in her tone. Lindorm nodded slightly. Immediately, he frowned tightly. Although it was quite pleasing to see the Yuan Kang trio being bullied by the black fog creature, he was also aware that once this thing refocused its attention, it would not let off anyone who was trapped in this place. At that time, it would be impossible for them to stop this creature with their strength. Oh! The eyes of the tightly frowning Lindorm suddenly became focused as he abruptly raised his head and looked at the bright red sky. An extremely powerful fluctuation had suddenly emerged from that spot. Ling Qingzhu also raised her head when she saw Lindorm's action. She softly commented, "There's something going on over there." Boom! An extremely melodious gong sound suddenly spread from the bright red sky after her voice sounded out. A bright red ripple began to sweep downwards from the vast sky at a speed visible to the naked eye following the gong sound. As the ripple traveled, Lin Dong immediately discovered that the distortions in the area had actually begun to disappear. Soon after, Lin Dong sensed countless powerful auras emerging in this domain. "The formation appears to have been lifted," Ling Qingzhu said. Clearly, she had also sensed the emergence of those auras. These auras were likely from those who had entered the burning sky ancient stash with them. Lin Dong nodded, but his eyes fixed onto the sky. The space there fluctuated and became distorted. In the end, an indescribably large cauldron seemed to have appeared, while they seemed to be within this cauldron. "It seems like we were not trapped in the burning sky array. Instead, we have been trapped in this object's stomach." Lin Dong pointed at the enormous cauldron that had appeared in the distorted space. Soon after, he inhaled a deep breath of air. His eyes were a little shocked. The burning sky ancient stash that they had barged into was actually a cauldron. It should be an extremely powerful pure yuan treasure. Ling Qingzhu's eyes were grave as she looked at the inner wall of the cauldron within the distorted space and softly commented. Lin Dong's eyes focused. He had seen the heavenly phoenix sither in Ying Huanhuan's hands. Though it was extremely powerful, this cauldron, which could actually create its own realm and swallow all of them into it, was clearly even more powerful. Such a treasure should be considered top tier even amongst pure yuan treasures, right? Boom! At this moment, a monstrous bright red light suddenly swept down from the cauldron that was so large that it seemingly covered the entire realm. Moreover, the direction that it was surging towards was where they were located. The bright red light directly formed an extremely huge light array in the sky when it swept downwards. Soon after, a curtain of light descended and enveloped the black fog creature. Bang bang bang. The black fog struck at the light array. However, it was no longer able to easily break free like before. However, that enormous force still shook the light array until it trembled continuously. This cauldron seems to be controlled by someone. A surprised look involuntarily flashed across Lin Dong's eyes as he spoke after seeing this scene. Ling Qingzhu nodded slightly. Her eyes were filled with surprise. It was likely that the strange situations unfolding before her caused even her to have difficulty maintaining a cool and collected state of mind. Damned old ghost Fen Tian. You have already died, yet you still continue to linger around. The black fog creature struck wildly against the light array. A deafening sound rumbled and spread over the area. It seems like the light array will not be able to hold for long. Lin Dong watched the light array that was turning increasingly unsteady from the strikes. His heart involuntarily pounded. If this array was broken and that creature broke free, there was no telling just how many people would die. Buzz buzz. While Lin Dong worried, a bright red fluctuation suddenly unfurled in the sky. This ripple had just spread when Lin Dong suddenly sensed a great resistance emitted from the space around him. Immediately, the space behind him began to twist and was actually trying to suck him in. What is going on? Ling Qingzhu asked with a frown because of this scene. Lin Dong's eyes flickered for a moment. He quickly said, "Do not resist. It seems like the cauldron wants to spit us out." Lin Dong gave up all resistance after his voice sounded out. He allowed the rejection force from the space to pull his body into the distorted space behind him. After which, everything quickly turned dark. This darkness did not last for long before Lin Dong sensed a bright red light shooting into his eyes. His vision was quickly restored. The scene that appeared before his eyes was no longer a crimson land. Instead, it was a bright red mountain range. At this moment, a bright red cauldron that was thousands of feet in size quietly stood in the air above these mountains, while wave after wave of scorching ripples were continuously emitted by it. Lin Dong stared at the bright red cauldron that was suspended in the sky, before he exhaled gently. He knew that the place they had been trapped in earlier should be the stomach of this cauldron that was now before them. A fiery aura rose up from the crimson mountains. From a distance, they looked just like burning mountains. An appearance that was extremely dazzling. Lin Dong's gaze was tightly glued onto the enormous cauldron that hovered in the sky above the mountains. The cauldron was bright red and there were images of flames on its surface. The fiery hot ripples that were being continuously emitted by it seemed intent on incinerating the entire sky. Clearly, this cauldron was the place where Lin Dong and the others were trapped previously. Swoosh! Soon after Lin Dong appeared on this mountain range, Ling Qingshu and the Yuan Kang trio also quickly appeared nearby. Subsequently, the surrounding space quickly turned distorted as numerous figures were spat out from the distorted space. Within a short few minutes, the sky above the quiet mountain range was filled with a sea of people. Following the appearance of this sea of people, the place also became much noisier. Quite a number of people were surveying their surroundings with cautious expressions. Some people even had bloodstains on their bodies. From the looks of it, they had quite a hard time in the burning sky array. Lin Dong. A joyous voice suddenly appeared from amongst the human figures that spread across the sky. Lin Dong turned his head, only to see a large group of figures rushing over. The ones leading them were Ying Xiaoxiao, Ying Huanhuan, and Wang Yang. Are you all right? Lin Dong sighed in relief when he saw that the three of them were fine and hurriedly asked. We're good. This burning sky ancient stash is too strange. Ying Xiaoxiao shook her head. Her face had a grave expression. Clearly, she also had a taste of just how powerful the burning sky array was. Big brother Lin Dong. Another young lady's joyous and melodious voice sounded from the distance. Soon after, Lin Dong saw Qingtan and Chen Gui rushing over from the distance. Lin Dong was finally completely relieved when he saw the two of them hurrying over. It was fortunate that everyone was fine. At this moment, the sky was in complete chaos. The members of the various factions hurriedly gathered together. For a time, the noise seemed to be about to overturn the sky. Be careful. Lin Dong watched the chaotic sky. After which, his eyes were thrown towards the enormous cauldron as he softly cautioned. This cauldron might be a treasure, but he did not believe that it was able to suppress that unknown creature. If the situation changes later, all of you must leave immediately. Lin Dong reminded. This burning sky ancient stash did not possess numerous treasures as everyone had imagined. Instead, it held a group of demons that would kill everyone. When Ying Xiaoxiao and the rest saw Lin Dong's grave expression, they nodded although they did not understand. Lin Dong, look at that spot. Ying Huanhuan suddenly pursed her lips. Her delicate finger pointed at the tallest mountain in this mountain range. There was lava flowing down from the top of it. It was just like a live volcano. Oh! Lin Dong narrowed his eyes. His sight followed the direction where Ying Huanhuan was pointing towards. A moment later, his eyes suddenly focused. He seemed to have seen a human figure seated in the lava at the mountain peak. There is actually someone here. Lin Dong's expression changed. He focused as he looked over, only to discover an extremely shriveled figure. His body was covered by a bright red robe. Moreover, Lin Dong could not sense any life energy from his body. It looked just like a shriveled corpse. Is he dead? Lin Dong knitted his brows and muttered. No, Ying Huanhuan shook her head. An icy blue color flashed across her large eyes as she softly said, it seems, he can still be considered alive. Still, considered alive. Lin Dong was clearly stunned by Ying Huanhuan's strange reply. One was either dead or alive. What did it mean by still considered alive? I am not certain either, however, I can sense that his life force has not completely vanished, moreover, his aura is a little familiar. Ying Huanhuan knitted her brows and contemplated for a moment before explaining. Her last sentence was basically spoken in a whisper. Others might not be able to clearly hear what she had said, but Lin Dong could hear some of it. His pupils shrunk slightly. It was naturally impossible for Ying Huanhuan to have met the red-robed person seated in the lava. However, this did not mean that her previous reincarnation had never met him. The so-called familiar feeling was very likely something that her previous reincarnator had given her. She met him before reincarnating her. Boom! While Lin Dong's eyes were focused on the human figure in the lava on the mountain, the cauldron in the sky suddenly began to tremble. A loud collision sound suddenly spread. "TSK, TSK, old ghost Fen Tien, your broken cauldron cannot suppress this, general." A monstrous black fog suddenly spread out from the bright red cauldron while it shook. A piercing and hearty laughter that contained an endlessly sinister feeling swept across the mountain range. The black fog gathered outside the cauldron. One could vaguely see a scarlet light flashing within it, like the eyes of a devil. It caused fear in those who had been looked upon by it. So many ants. The scarlet light swept over the human figures that filled the sky. Soon after, a sinister voice emerged from the black fog. In the next instant, countless black rays of light suddenly shot out. "Kai Kai!" The black rays of light swiftly penetrated some people who were not able to dodge. Next, everyone was stunned as they watched the bodies of those who were struck begin to gradually wither away. In the end, not even their bones remained as they turned into ashes and scattered. The entire sky immediately became chaotic. Shocked expressions surged over everyone's faces. "Leave quickly." Lin Dong inhaled a deep breath of air and immediately cried out in a deep voice. This unknown creature that had survived since the ancient times was clearly not something that they could match up to. Remaining behind would only be akin to seeking their own deaths. Ying Xiaoxiao and the rest hurriedly nodded when they heard this. They could similarly sense a rich danger from the black fog creature. Lin Dong and the rest swiftly pulled back. Numerous black rays rushed past all around them. None of those struck by it could withstand it and were directly reduced to ashes. For a time, ashes drifted over the sky, appearing like a storm of grey. Lin Dong stood at the back of the group. His eyes were extremely cautious as they watched the black rays that shot over from all directions. His pupils suddenly shrunk in the next moment. A black ray of light had finally found its target and shot explosively towards them. Lin Dong's eyes turned grave and uncertain as he watched the black ray that shot towards them. This was because even he did not have the confidence to receive this attack that contained an extremely mysterious energy. However, regardless of how uncertain he felt at this moment, he could not withdraw. This was because Qing Tan, Ying Huan, and the rest were behind him. Lin Dong inhaled a deep breath of air as majestic Yuan power surged out. However, he was just about to intervene and block the black ray when a figure stood in front of him first. That bouncing jet-black ponytail belonged to Ying Huan. "You?" Lin Dong was clearly greatly shocked by Ying Huan's action. He was just about to berate her when the latter shook her head and softly said, "You cannot block that attack." Upon hearing this, Lin Dong was taken aback. It was not because of the words, but the additional trace of the bone-deep icy chill that was present in Ying Huan's voice. This coldness was not something her original self possessed. Swoosh! The black ray arrived like lightning, while an icy blue color gradually surged out from Ying Huan's big eyes. Behind her, Lin Dong watched as her jet-black hair started to show signs of turning icy blue. Lin Dong's eyes became focused at this moment. Soon after, he clenched his fist as a black tree trunk flashed and appeared. Clearly, he was planning to immediately take action if something went wrong. At this moment, he no longer had the time to care about whether he could block the strange black ray. Swish! The black ray finally rushed over in the next instant. Finally, it unleashed a ripple of death in front of the eyes of Lin Dong and the rest. Humph! The split second before the black ray could strike Ying Huan, the red-robed human figure seated in the lava on the mountain in the distance suddenly opened his eyes. A flash of light flickered deep within those eyes. Ice! Ice Master! The red-robed human figure raised his head. His eyes looked through space before finally stopping on Ying Huan's figure. An unusually hazy and hoarse voice that was filled with an ancient flavor slowly echoed outwards. This video will end here.